Good evening, everyone. My subject on this evening's presentation is about the question of too many brands. In the brand portfolio strategy, there comes a time for some companies to determine if they just have too many brands. Too many brands can mean promises not kept. After all, a brand means a promise made. Tonight we'll be looking at the brand portfolio, over-branding, and how to correct and modify when there are too many brands. This next frame provides a link to a video about too many brands. I'm still not able to incorporate it, but there's the link and it's only about 2 minutes. But what he says in his 2-minute video is that the less brands a company has, the easier it is for both employees and customers to understand, manage, and remember them. But just as important, that each brand remain meaningful and profitable. The more promises a company makes, the harder it is for a customer to remember what they should expect from a company as a whole. Without discipline, brands tend to proliferate. As new products and services are developed, it's natural to want a unique name, logo, and tagline, but it leads to confusion with too many brands for customers to distinguish. So key questions he talks about are, what does the new brand say about the company? Does it make a new and distinct promise? And if not, how can it best support the company promise? In this next segment, the textbook talks about when branded offerings overlap and how it can become messy. And confusing, especially for customers. This process calls for asking two important questions about whether to add a new brand or sub-brand. The first question is the business associated with a new brand or sub-brand substantial enough, and will it have a long enough life to justify creating or maintaining a brand? And the second question is, would the use of any existing brand inhibit or even detract from the promise of the offering or the other ones, or result in that brand being damaged or diluted? Now then, the questions then arise as whether to retain an acquired brand or existing sub-brand. The process to screen brand additions and whether to delete certain brands, which I refer to as an overloaded brand portfolio. The two main questions here are similar to the previous ones. Is the business associated with the acquired or existing brand or sub-brand substantial enough, and does it have a long enough life to justify creating or maintaining a brand? Decisions. Can brand equity from the acquired or existing brand or sub-brand be transferred to another brand within the portfolio with a justifiable budget without putting that brand at risk? Next, we take a look at the importance of the portfolio manager, setting aside what their real focus is on and what it really should be. At times, the process is in place, but mistakes can still be made. Usually, the best answer is to reduce the total number of brands in the portfolio, because the consequences can result in inefficiency and confusion to a paralysis in managing the portfolio. As I continue, the process goes on to what is called the strategic brand consolidation process. And what this means is the goal to create a comprehensive and objective process to review strength and utility of the brands in the portfolio. In this process are 6 steps outlined in this frame. Here I've bolded the second step because it's one of the more important strategic brand assessment criteria, but I'll go over the 6. The goal is to create a comprehensive and objective process that will systematically review the strength and utility of the brands in the portfolio. Number 1, identify the brand set. 2, brand assessment criteria. 3, evaluating the brands. 4, prioritize the brands. A tier level, the cash cow role, eliminate, merge, unnotice, transfer equity. 5, develop the revised brand portfolio strategy. And 6, design and implement the migration strategy. Now, rewinding just a little bit to go over step 2, the brand assessment criteria to review the strength and utility of the brands in the portfolio. First, there's the brand equity, which includes awareness, reputation, differentiation, relevance, loyalty. Then there's business strength, sales, share market position, profit margin, growth. Third, strategic fit, extendability, business fit. And fourth, branding options, brand equity transferability, merging with other brands. Next, we get into after the brands have been evaluated and prioritized. This whole review and revamp is a long drawn-out process with a heavy concentration in all areas of the process. To me, my analogy is it's kind of like cleaning out my closet of shoes, boots, sandals, hiking boots, slippers, and more. Just too many pairs, or in this case, too many brands. So evaluating the brands means following this 4 criteria. To prioritize means that after the brands have been evaluated, the brands that are to live must be actively managed. Other category of brands such as cash cow should be dialed down into a descriptive role with no resource behind them. They are not eliminated but no longer drain brand building resources from the more important brands because they are less likely to create confusion in the marketplace or get in the way of the total offering. So these 4 are: number 1, eliminate. They're just not suited for the portfolio. 2, on notice, non-performing but prospective. 3, merge into groups of brands. 4, transfer equity to another brand. And that's what that requires. Now, after that has been done, after prioritizing the brand, it's time to develop the revised brand portfolio strategy and move the portfolio forward. The brands that are supported must be actively managed and be prioritized or tiered. The top tier will include the strategic power brands and then a second tier with a specialized role such as a flanker or silver bullet. I call this riding the wave because the brand has to be suited for the portfolio. Some brands need to be eliminated at this point from the portfolio, or if they remain, must enhance all activities to determine if some brands may be elevated to a higher tier. Then can the brand portfolio move forward. Next, we get into the transition to implement the existing strategy to a target strategy. The transition can be done gradually or abruptly. When it is done abruptly, it can signal a shift in the overall organization and brand strategy. It may enhance the offering and reinforce the business from where it was. The other option is to migrate customers from one brand to another gradually. That means that an endorser brand over time can eventually become the master brand. Nestle provided a good example with the purchase of the Contadina brand and a transfer to Buitoni, 2 brands overlapping and were a decision to make Buitoni the global brand for Nestle. So once the priorities have been set and the strategy revised, structures are then created and the remaining decisions left may be to replace sub-brands with descriptors. And in conclusion, it's about the process for determining when there are too many brands in the brand portfolio. I've presented some of the causes of too many brands, what can happen to the portfolio when there are too many brands, and how to determine when to add or retain. The process and decision-making criteria in deciding when a brand should stay or if it should go. The evaluating, the prioritizing, the criteria, the restructure, and finally, the implementation. The fact is that the more brands a company carries, the more promises it must keep. Not to mention that with more brands, a company has more managing to perform within the portfolio. It has more resources that are needed and required to continue with each and every brand. And to maintain a solid portfolio, fewer brands are just better. And I just added this. This is a list of companies with the highest number of brands, but I left some of those blank. So there's a link that listofbrands.com, and go to Wikipedia, and that'll give you some information on some of these big companies with high numbers of brands. And that's just a page of my references. Thank you very much.